Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. Be careful how you wound a woman who knows how to alchemize her agony. She'll build an empire with your ashes. Most people think pain breaks women, but Sigma females, pain builds them. Pain isn't the end of their story. It's the raw, volcanic material that forges their next level. And here's the part that should scare everyone who thought they could play her. Studies show that emotionally resilient women are more likely to outperform their peers in leadership, creative innovation, and long-term strategy. Now imagine that power in a Sigma female, someone who already doesn't play by society's rules. You're not just looking at survival, you're witnessing silent domination. She doesn't cry for closure. She doesn't beg for understanding. She vanishes and comes back a little more untouchable than before. And while you're still trying to figure out how she didn't crumble, she's already 3 levels higher, launching a business, mastering her peace, and sipping iced coffee like your betrayal was a vitamin supplement. Welcome to the world of Sigma females, where pain is never wasted, it's weaponized. Let's dive into the 12 extraordinary ways Sigma females turn pain into greatness. And fair warning, this might just make you rethink who's really the strong one. Number 1. She doesn't forgive to be noble, she forgets to stay dangerous. She doesn't forgive to be noble, she forgets to stay dangerous. People love to preach about forgiveness like it's some kind of moral high ground. But for the Sigma female, forgiveness isn't about looking good, feeling holy, or getting a pat on the back. It's strategic. If she forgives you, it's not because she wants to rebuild the connection. It's because you no longer matter enough to her for her to carry your memory. She doesn't hang on to pain just to prove a point. She lets it dissolve, but not in the soft, dreamy way people expect. She lets it go because she refuses to let your presence live rent-free in her mind. She doesn't want closure. She becomes it. While other people chase after explanations and final conversations, she quietly deletes the emotional file and moves on. No farewell speech, no text, just gone. And that's what makes her terrifying. You think you've escaped consequences, but one day you'll reach out and she'll treat you like a complete stranger. Not because she's pretending, but because she honestly doesn't remember what it felt like to need you. The power in her forgetfulness is not emotional detachment, it's focus. She refuses to keep circling the same emotional drain. If a person made her bleed once, they don't get a second chance to watch her bleed again. That's not bitterness. That's evolution. She doesn't need to process everything through a therapist or a spiritual journey. She just rewires herself, coldly, quickly, quietly. And this is what people don't understand about her. She's not holding a grudge. She's just no longer available. You can't manipulate someone who's forgotten you exist. You can't guilt-trip someone who doesn't even carry your emotional shadow anymore. She knows the most dangerous thing she can do to someone who tried to hurt her is absolutely nothing. No reaction, no apology needed, just complete erasure. And in a world where most people beg to be remembered, being forgotten by her is the final punishment. Because when a Sigma female forgets you, it doesn't mean she's healed. It means she's permanently outgrown the version of herself that ever needed you at all. Number 2, she makes her loneliness holy. Loneliness doesn't crush her, it refines her. When life rips people away, when betrayal clears the room, when silence becomes the loudest sound she hears, she doesn't panic. She doesn't chase noise just to feel something. Instead, she leans into the void and makes it her sanctuary. Most people treat loneliness like a disease, something to escape at all costs. But the Sigma female knows better. She treats it like a spiritual detox. No distractions, no fake company, just her, the silence, and the truth. And in that truth, something wild happens. She stops performing. There's no one to impress, no masks to wear, no energy to waste proving her worth. Loneliness strips her down to her core, and instead of breaking her, it births a version of her that's terrifyingly clear. No fog, no chaos, just focus. While others run from solitude, she turns it into sacred space. Her solitude isn't empty. It's clean, it's quiet, but powerful. She finds rhythm in her own breath, clarity in her own thoughts, and a level of peace that makes the outside world look loud and unnecessary. What began as pain becomes practice. She stops craving presence that doesn't feed her. She becomes allergic to shallow interactions and deeply loyal to her own space. Her loneliness teaches her who she is when no one's watching. And once she tastes that level of self-possession, there's no going back. She doesn't fear being alone anymore. She fears losing the version of herself she found in that silence. And this is where people misunderstand her. They think she's distant, cold, unavailable. But the truth is, she's simply not willing to dilute her peace for temporary company. Her solitude raised her. It taught her patience. It taught her power. It taught her how to be enough. So when you see her alone, don't pity her. She's not lonely in the way the world defines it. She's alone on purpose. Because in that holy space, she found the kind of strength that can't be faked, borrowed, or broken. Number 3, she writes her own gospel from her grief. She doesn't bury her pain. She documents it. Not in a way that begs for pity or applause, but in a way that sharpens her memory. Every heartbreak, betrayal, and silent breakdown becomes part of her personal gospel, a sacred, unfiltered record of her becoming. While others try to erase their past to look polished, she writes it down like scripture, page by page, truth by truth. Because to her, grief isn't just something to survive, it's something to study. And from that study, she builds her power. She doesn't need a crowd. She doesn't need sympathy. What she needs is to remember, to never forget the days she cried alone in her car, the nights she doubted her worth, or the mornings she still showed up, even when her heart was shattered. She doesn't write to be liked. She writes so she never forgets the cost of her wisdom. Her grief becomes a map, a private archive of where she was broken, what she learned, and who she had to become to crawl out. Not every lesson is pretty. Some are jagged, some are cruel, some nearly killed her, but she honors them all. Not one tear wasted, not one heartbreak ignored. She doesn't frame her past in soft lighting. She tells it raw, blunt, with details no one else would dare include. Because there's no growth without honesty. And Sigma females are nothing if not honest with themselves. What the world sees as coldness is often just her refusal to let her suffering be romanticized. She doesn't turn pain into poetry. She turns it into law, her own laws, boundaries, standards, codes, unshakable truths that now govern how she moves. Her grief taught her who not to trust, what not to tolerate, and what parts of herself were never meant to be shared carelessly. So when she writes, it's not for attention, it's for remembrance. Because she knows forgetting the fire is how people become flammable again. She writes her gospel so she never repeats the same death twice, and so the woman she's becoming never forgets the fire that raised her. Number 4, she becomes addicted to her own comebacks. She becomes addicted to her own comebacks because they remind her what she's truly made of. Every time she gets knocked down, she rises sharper, wiser, and more detached from things that once destroyed her. At first, the falls felt like death, shaking, crippling. But after surviving enough of them, something shifts. The fear fades. The panic quiets. And what's left is a woman who's no longer afraid of losing anything, because she knows she'll always get back up and come back stronger. Pain becomes her unofficial coach. It teaches her how to rebuild faster, how to cut losses clean, how to adapt without losing herself. Her resilience isn't soft or poetic, it's brutal, efficient, strategic. And the more she survives, the more addictive that bounce back becomes. Not in a toxic way, not like she's seeking suffering, but in a quiet, unshakable confidence that says, "Throw what you want at me, I'll use it." Her rock bottoms stop being tragedies, they become rituals, initiations, a twisted kind of rebirth where every version of herself that didn't serve her gets burned off. And what's left standing is someone more dangerous than ever. She starts expecting storms, not because she's negative, but because she's ready. She doesn't dread the fall. She prepares for the aftermath. She doesn't just recover, she upgrades. And people start noticing. They see a woman who went through hell, but came back glowing, focused, unbothered. They wonder how she does it. The truth is, she's trained herself not to flinch anymore, not to break at every blow. She's been through enough chaos to know the comeback is always more powerful than the collapse. And here's the twist. She kind of loves it now. The process, the rebuild, the moment where everyone counts her out. And then she reappears, fiercer and more untouchable than before. She doesn't just rise. She studies how she rose. She improves the blueprint, and then she keeps it tucked away for next time. Because for the Sigma female, the fall isn't the fear, it's the fuel. And the comeback? That's the high she'll keep chasing. Number 5. She learns to make God her only witness. She learns to make God her only witness because trusting people with her pain has cost her too much. Every time she opened up, someone tried to edit her truth, twist her words, or use her vulnerability as leverage. So she stopped performing, stopped explaining, stopped waiting for anyone to clap for her healing. Instead, she got quiet, but not weak. She realized the only one who needed to see her rise was the one who never left when everyone else did. God. When betrayal gutted her and people clapped for her downfall, she didn't fight to be understood. She retreated, not out of fear, but out of focus. The world thrives on noise and validation, but she chose sacred silence. She started rebuilding in the dark, piece by piece, while no one was watching. No Instagram posts, no announcements, no speeches, just discipline, growth, and whispers to heaven in the dead of night. People thought she disappeared. She didn't. She just stopped giving them access. What they called silence was actually strategy. What they thought was weakness was worship. They don't realize her silence isn't empty. It's holy. It's loaded. It's protected. The version of her that used to beg for recognition is gone. She doesn't care who sees her anymore. She cares that God sees her becoming exactly who He designed her to be, without filters, applause, or permission. She's no longer trying to prove she's okay. She knows she is. And that confidence doesn't come from compliments, it comes from obedience, from walking through fire without announcing it, from healing without an audience. Her revenge isn't loud, it's divine. She doesn't need to be seen rising, she just needs to know she didn't fold, and that's enough. While others crave external validation, she's in a secret place, leveling up with no one to impress but the one who kept her breathing when everything else fell apart. Because at the end of the day, the most terrifying kind of woman is the one who doesn't need the world's approval. She just needs God's green light, and once she has it, nothing can stop her. Number 6. She no longer waits for apologies. She becomes the consequence. She no longer waits for apologies because she knows they rarely come, and even when they do, they're usually laced with excuses, half-truths, or guilt trips. She's done begging for accountability from people who only feel sorry after they're caught or when they lose access to her. She's not interested in the fake "I'm sorry," followed by the same old behavior. That version of her, the one who waited, explained, forgave too quickly, that woman is gone. Now she lets people live with the silence she used to fill. She lets them sit in the space where her loyalty used to breathe. And the apology, she never demands it. She just becomes the proof that they should have treated her better. Her growth, her glow-up, her peace, that's the new punishment. You don't get closure. You get a front-row seat to her evolution without a ticket back in. She doesn't block to make a statement. She doesn't ghost for attention. She simply removes herself like oxygen and lets you suffocate on your own decisions. That's her style now. No drama, no goodbye, just distance you can't cross. And what most people don't understand is, she's not doing it to be cruel. She's doing it to reclaim her dignity. Because waiting for someone to validate her pain was the old her. The upgraded version doesn't need permission to move on. She doesn't need an apology to close the chapter. She is the closure. Her silence says what paragraphs can't. People often realize what they lost too late. They expect a door to reopen, but what they find is a wall, cold, firm, immovable. Because when she outgrows someone, it's final. No second chances, no explanations, just a quiet truth. She became the consequence. The one they didn't see coming, the one who transformed instead of begging, the one who moved on so well it became haunting. Her healing isn't soft and sweet, it's surgical. And once she cuts you out, even your apology can't suture your way back in. Because now, her success is the echo, her distance is the message, and her evolution is the revenge. Number 7. She turns emotional starvation into hyper-discernment. She turns emotional starvation into hyper-discernment because being emotionally neglected taught her a brutal lesson, how to survive on nothing. When you've begged for bare minimum care, over-explained your feelings to emotionally numb people, or waited years for a connection that never came, something shifts. You stop settling. You stop hoping. and you start seeing with laser precision who's safe and who's just another beautiful lie. She doesn't tolerate emotional crumbs anymore because she knows what it's like to starve for honesty, safety, and presence. She remembers the ache of feeling invisible in a room full of people, the pain of opening up and being met with blank stares or dismissive replies, the deep loneliness that comes from being surrounded but never truly felt. So now, she scans everything, energy, tone, micro-expressions, not because she's paranoid, but because she's trained. Her body knows what betrayal feels like. Her gut has receipts. Her standards don't just rise, they go nuclear. She no longer listens to words. She watches patterns, consistency, emotional weight. And when something feels even slightly off, she shuts it down. Fast, without explanation, without apology. She doesn't play guessing games anymore. One whiff of manipulation, vague communication, or emotional unavailability, and the door closes. Permanently. People think she's picky. Too much. Hard to please. But they don't know what it took for her to become this guarded. They didn't see the years she spent loving people who only knew how to take. The night she swallowed her needs just to keep someone close. The quiet breaking that happens when you keep choosing people who never truly choose you back. Now she's the gatekeeper, ruthless with access. If your energy feels like her past pain, you don't even make it to the welcome mat. She no longer explains herself, softens her boundaries, or gives benefit of the doubt to red flags dressed in charisma. She sees too clearly now. Emotional starvation didn't destroy her, it sharpened her. And now she doesn't look for love that makes her feel full. She requires it, or she walks. No arguments, no second chances, just a closed door, and a woman who refuses to beg for what she was born to deserve. Number 8. She doesn't talk through pain, she alchemizes it. She doesn't talk through pain the way people expect. She's not the type to sit in circles rehashing every wound or narrating her suffering for emotional applause. She'll vent once, maybe twice. But after that, she goes dark. Not because she's avoiding the pain, but because she's busy turning it into something. While others are still processing, she's already building. You won't see her sobbing on social media or romanticizing her trauma in cute captions. That's not her style. Her healing doesn't perform, it produces. She doesn't just survive what hurt her, she uses it. Every betrayal becomes a brick. Every heartbreak becomes a blueprint. Every moment she was dismissed, overlooked, or violated becomes part of the empire she's quietly constructing. People assume she's cold because she doesn't cry publicly. They assume she's unbothered because she doesn't broadcast her wounds. What they don't know is that she feels deeply, but processes silently. She's not seeking sympathy, she's seeking elevation. Her pain doesn't make her pause forever. It makes her pivot, swiftly, viciously, precisely. Therapy? She might go. Journaling? Maybe, but those are just side tools. The real shift happens when she changes her standards, reorganizes her priorities, reinvents her energy. She doesn't sit in her pain. She spins it into motion. Pain says, stay down. She replies, watch this. And then she flips the script so completely that even the people who hurt her have to respect her transformation. What most don't understand is that her power doesn't come from healing nicely. It comes from healing strategically. She takes the chaos and organizes it, takes the heartbreak and writes new rules, takes the pain and makes it profitable, powerful, and permanent. She doesn't heal to return to who she was before. She heals to outgrow that version completely. She alchemizes pain into purpose, and turns every wound into proof that you can't kill a woman who's already mastered how to resurrect herself again and again. Number 9. She makes silence her blood type. She makes silence her blood type because words have failed her too many times. She's explained herself to people who were never listening, defended her heart to those who only came to harm it, and poured out her truth to ears that filtered it through ego. So now she speaks less, much less. And when the betrayal hits, or the heartbreak cuts deep, she doesn't argue. She disappears. Her silence is not weakness, it's strategy. It's preservation, it's power. People expect drama, confrontation, closure, but she gives them nothing, just distance. And in that space where she used to give energy, attention, or care, there's now a vacuum, a loud absence. And that silence, it haunts people, because they realize too late that they were never just hearing her voice, they were feeling her presence. Now, it's gone. She no longer explains her side of the story because she knows truth doesn't require permission. It reveals itself in time, and she doesn't need to play the courtroom game anymore. Her silence says, "You already know what you did, and if you don't, that's not her job to fix." There's something eerie about the way she exits. No scenes, no warnings, just quiet. The kind of quiet that makes people rethink everything they said, or didn't say. She lets them sit with the echoes of her last words because there won't be more. And that's what unsettles them most. She won't circle back. She won't clarify. She won't soften the blow. What the world calls cold, she calls discipline. What they mistake as passive is actually a calculated refusal to give energy to anything unworthy. Her silence becomes a boundary, a statement, a new language, one where the message is clear: access denied. And once she decides to go silent, that silence becomes permanent. She doesn't return to prove a point. Her exit is the point. So when she stops talking, stop assuming she's broken. She's not. She's just evolved beyond needing to explain her worth to anyone who treated it like it was negotiable. Number 10. She kills the good girl that got her hurt. She kills the good girl that got her hurt because that version of her was trained to self-destruct in the name of being liked. The girl who smiled through disrespect, who stayed silent to keep the peace, who gave more than she had, hoping someone would finally see her. That girl was polite, pleasing, and painfully invisible. And every time someone crossed her, disappointed her, or used her softness as a shortcut to power, that girl cracked a little more, until she finally died. Now, what rises in her place is something raw, something wild, not broken but rebuilt without the performance. She no longer shrinks to make others comfortable. She no longer trades her dignity for proximity. The old her would have apologized just to smooth things over. The new her disappears, or devours. There's no middle ground anymore. She doesn't explode. She evolves, quietly, sharply, and without warning. People who used to control her with guilt or praise find that their tricks don't work anymore. The agreeable girl is gone. In her place stands a woman who doesn't need to be liked to feel valid. She doesn't crave approval. She commands respect. Her boundaries become brutal, not because she's mean, but because kindness almost killed her. She gave too many passes, too many explanations, too many second chances. So now, when a red flag appears, she doesn't pause to interpret it. She burns the whole flag and blocks the source. Fast, ruthless, final. People around her feel the shift and call her cold, detached, harsh. But what they're really feeling is the absence of the version of her they could manipulate. That girl used to cry after every argument, overthink every silence, question her worth every time someone walked away. That girl is gone, buried, mourned, and not missed. Because the woman that emerged doesn't play by the old rules. She doesn't bend, she doesn't chase, she doesn't shrink. She's not here to be sweet. She's here to be whole, and sometimes that means being fierce, guarded, and gloriously unapologetic. She didn't become heartless. She just finally made peace with being powerful. And for once, she chose herself, without guilt, without apology, without looking back. Number 11. She turns betrayal into a brutal filter. She turns betrayal into a brutal filter because she knows pain is data, and she pays attention. When someone crosses her, she doesn't just get hurt, she gets analytical. She doesn't spiral or play victim. She studies. She rewinds the tapes, retraces the steps, breaks down the dynamics. And once she sees the pattern, she doesn't just remove the person, she removes the entire type. You hurt her once? She logs the behavior. You lied? She tracks the micro-expressions. You manipulated her? She stores the script. Then she goes quiet, not because she's fragile, but because she's processing. She treats betrayal like an autopsy, cold, methodical, emotionless. Because this isn't about revenge. It's about refinement. She becomes a surgeon with a scalpel, precise, no mercy. She starts cutting people off not just for what they did, but for what they represent. She stops entertaining entire personalities. The overcharmers, the emotionally unavailable, the fake humble, the trauma dumpers. She sees through them all now. Because betrayal taught her to stop listening to words and start decoding patterns. And she doesn't announce these cuts. There's no drama, no speech, just silence. and a quiet, irreversible extraction. You go from inner circle to invisible and she won't flinch. That's how sharp her filter becomes. It's not personal, it's protocol. Most people think betrayal breaks her. What it really does is upgrade her firewall. After enough lessons, she no longer questions if someone is toxic. She catches it before they even speak. Her radar is elite. Her emotional intelligence, weaponized. Pain didn't make her bitter, it made her efficient. Now she doesn't wait for red flags. She spots the thread before the fabric is even woven, because betrayal taught her the most brutal truth. It's not about healing from what they did. It's about preventing the next one from ever getting close enough to try. So she filters, without guilt, without hesitation. She doesn't just protect her peace, she gatekeeps it like a fortress. And once you're cut, you don't get patched back in, not because she's cruel, but because she finally knows exactly what not to allow twice. Number 12. She builds inner empires from emotional collapse. She builds inner empires from emotional collapse because even when her world falls apart, her mind starts drafting blueprints. Where others crumble and wait to be saved, she walks into the wreckage of her own breakdown with eyes wide open. The pain hits hard. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the disappointment, it all levels her. But instead of sinking, she scans the ruins. She's not just feeling it, she's studying it. Every collapse becomes a demolition site with purpose. She doesn't just sit in the rubble asking, why me? She starts asking, what now? She doesn't waste time cursing the people who hurt her. She's too busy redesigning herself with their damage as raw material. If something inside her dies, she doesn't mourn forever. She gets to work. Not in a fake, bounce-back-fast kind of way, in a slow, brutal, focused way. She grieves and rebuilds simultaneously. Most people see emotional overload as a shutdown. For her, it's a signal. It's time to evolve. She takes the parts of herself that cracked and rearranges them. A new identity begins to form, not based on who she was, but who the pain is calling her to become. The version of her that allowed too much? Gone. The one that apologized for having needs? Buried. What rises is something leaner, sharper, less accommodating, more intentional. And here's what makes her different. She doesn't just come back, she comes back, redesigned. She upgrades her mind, her energy, her language, her silence. She doesn't just get over it, she builds from it. The pain becomes scaffolding, the heartbreak becomes concrete, the tears water the foundation, and what eventually stands where she once broke down is an inner empire, emotionally fortified, spiritually bulletproof, and entirely self-funded by her own resilience. So while the world watches her fall and waits for her to collapse into dust, she's laying bricks in the dark. No one sees it coming. But when she reappears, she doesn't need to explain the glow. The architecture of her comeback says it all. In a world that expects women to heal quietly, stay small, and be endlessly forgiving, the Sigma female breaks the script. She doesn't just survive pain, she engineers greatness from it. Every betrayal becomes a filter. Every collapse becomes a foundation. Every heartbreak becomes a lesson wrapped in fire. She doesn't need to scream her story because her evolution is the story, written in silence, built in shadows, and revealed only through undeniable results. She doesn't crumble. She recalibrates. She doesn't wait for closure. She becomes it. And she doesn't need the world to understand her journey because she didn't take it for them. This is what makes her terrifying and divine at the same time. Her ability to transform suffering into structure, isolation into identity, and pain into purpose. No applause, no audience. Just impact, quiet, consistent, unstoppable. So if you ever cross paths with a Sigma female, know this. Whatever tried to destroy her only refined her. And the woman you see now? She's not a product of luck. She's the result of every fire she refused to die in. Let the world romanticize resilience. She embodies it, feral, focused, and unbothered. If this message hit deep, if you felt seen, empowered, or awakened, don't just scroll past. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss content that speaks the unfiltered truth about power, pain, and transformation. Like the video to let us know it resonated with you. Comment below, what part shook you the most? We want to hear your story. And share this with someone who needs to be reminded. Pain isn't the end. It's the beginning of power. This channel isn't just a vibe, it's a movement. And trust me, you belong here. Stay sharp, stay sovereign, stay Sigma.